Hi everyone, it's Stephanie with Lumeria Star, and today I thought it would be fun to actually do a VR virtual response. I've only done like one of these, I think, but recently, like after work, I just find it really soothing to like go on YouTube and just like watch other tarot tubers VRs to all these different like topics, and it's just been like so soothing and enjoyable, like when I'm cooking dinner or if I'm cleaning or just like relaxing on the couch. And I was like, oh, these are fun, like I want to do one. So here we are. So today's VR is to Candy, Soul, and Soil. So these are top curiosity decks. I believe that was the original like title and tag, but I think it's kind of like morphed and evolved. And I saw a couple tarot tubers do like a cabinet of curiosities, which definitely resonated with me. So I think that's kind of like the vibe I'm going for. So these are decks that either I feel like would belong in a cabinet of curiosities if I had one, or they're decks that just like really maybe are peculiar or odd or just draw me in and make me feel curious. So that's kind of how I framed this VR for myself. So let's just get started. So the first deck I have is in this kind of sad bag. This deck definitely needs a better bag. It deserves a better bag. So this deck is the Lydia Tarot, which is like the shortened name of, I have the title card. So the full name of the deck is Madame Lydia Wilhelmina's Tarot of Monsters, the Macabre, and Autumn Scenes. So that's just really fun. I found this deck, oh gosh, this is the second edition. I want to say I got this back in like 2018. There is an extra card, the Deary Squirrel. I found this like randomly online and I just thought it was so cool. And it's like vintage. It's made of like old style art. I believe this is like pre-existing art, and it was kind of digitally manipulated and collaged into being, you know, slightly darker and macabre and spooky. So I feel like this is just the perfect spooky season deck without kind of being over the top or a little too like kitschy. I love this. So 10 of Cups is one of my favorite cards in general, and I feel like it's like the happy family but make it spooky. It's like very like Addams Family or the Munsters. I love that card. This is just such a great deck, and unfortunately I do think it's out of print. I think if I can find it, I will link it below, but this deck is definitely something that makes me feel curious. Like, look at these. It's strange, it's weird in the best kind of way. I love, like, if you know me, I'm a huge Halloween fan, horror fan. Like horror films and novels are like one of my favorite genres. My son's in the 8th house, so if you know, you know. I feel like that totally encompasses my personality in a way that, like, just saying, oh, I'm a Leo sun and Sag rising and Gemini moon, like people would be like, well, why are you into like such dark things? And it's my son being in the 8th house, which is Scorpio, which is the house of like death and taboo and the occult. So it makes sense. So this to me definitely scratches my itch for the spooky and the macabre. So I just love it. Every like fall, I really enjoy taking this deck out and getting to play with it. I do like to, look how pretty that moon card is. Like, she's so haunting. I do really enjoy when like the seasons change and the wheel turns to take out my darker decks. It's just something that's super enjoyable for me. So yeah, this is deck number 1 in my Cabinet of Curiosities deck. So this is the Lydia Tarot for short. Okay, so the next deck I have will be the representative for all the decks I have from this creator, because I just wanted to pick one, and you'll see what I mean. So you may or may not be able to tell from these backs. Do you know from these backs? So this is the Oracle of Oddities from Claire Goodchild. I am such a huge fan of hers. Her Antique Anatomy is definitely in my top 10 decks ever. Her aesthetic definitely captures my aesthetic, my vibe, which is like the juxtaposition of like the beautiful and the macabre. Like I just love where they intersect, and I feel like she does such a great job at that. So this deck in general, or overall, is what I call my Oracle of Oddities mega deck. So I was able to find all 3 copies, like all 3 editions of her Oracle, and I combined them all into one mega deck, and this deck is so much fun. It's got chakra cards, and it's super simple. There's only just a small keyword. It did not come with any guidebook, no little white book, so it's totally an intuitive deck, and it is such a good reader. It's such a strong reader sometimes that like sometimes it scares me. Look at this nightmare card. It's just such a truth teller. I have to be ready. I have to be ready for this kind of energy, but it's so good. It pairs really beautifully with a lot of decks. It has that vintage feel with like the vintage paper. And it's definitely great for shadow work because we have, you know, light cards like Joy, but you know, she definitely doesn't shy away from darker cards, of course, if I can find them. Like there's a Memento Mori card, which I also have her Memento Mori deck, but I wanted to feature this one just because I feel like I see less of it online, like on social media, especially because her Memento Mori deck is newer. So I feel like this one doesn't get as much play. But like, look at this deception, the snakes crawling out of the skull, not crawling, slithering out of the skull, anger. Like, look at that. Holy shit. So good. Do I have other? I really love this Rebirth card too. I get that a lot. This Dreams card, gorgeous. Infected, that's another pretty dark card. Like, how has your mind or your thoughts been infected? Let me see if there's any darker cards. Sorrow. It's just so beautiful. This makes me, you know, I think I'm filming this in July of 2022, and I feel like this needs to come out, whether it's August or September for my tarot edit, but it just, maybe September. September is a good segue into like full spooky season. So anyway, deck number 2 is my Oracle of Oddities mega deck by Claire Goodchild, and it is in this little kind of witchy pouch. Okay, so the next one is let's do this one. So this one's a bit newer to me in my collection. This is the Embroidered Graveyard, and this deck is so cool. Like, how could this not go in a Cabinet of Curiosities? Like, first of all, the quality is gorgeous, but the fact that the creator, I want to say her name is Alicia or Alicia, I don't know how she pronounces it. These are the backs. So we've got the like planchette kind of theme here. Beautiful gilding, like a bronze color. But all of this artwork has been hand embroidered by her. Look at this, live deliciously. So it's so unique. that I just feel this would have to go in a cabinet of curiosities. It's so unique. It's got that, again, that aesthetic I love of being like that beautiful juxtaposition of beautiful and macabre and dark. It really beautifully does that. Look at this, the mermaid card, Temptress. Like, that's so Ariel and Eric. It's gorgeous. I love this deck. I got it a couple months ago, and I used it, I want to say back in April, but I'm really excited to use it for fall during like October. I think it'll feel more powerful then. Like, creepy, total, like the Shining twins. Yeah. How can you not love this deck? And I'm sure it's not for everyone, but it is for me. This is the vibe I love to go for. And it's funny because I feel like I have so many different aesthetics, and I think that's part of the fun of tarot, is allowing yourself to, oops, sorry, it's my computer. That's part of the fun, is exploring different aesthetics and different energies. But this is so me. And it comes with this gorgeous book that I just wanted to show. Let me put the cards back in real quick. So the deck came with this gorgeous, oops, I feel like I'm bumping. Gorgeous hardcover book. And it just feels so magical. It feels like this magical spell book, full color. So you can like pull to your card, like open up to the card you pulled. And, you know, it's got a divination meaning. It's got spirit communing, because you can also use these decks to divine and communicate with like ancestors or people who have passed, which I've not really done. That's not something I typically do in my practice. And then each one also has an introspection card, or not card, an introspection section. And then there's these different spells, and there's different spreads. So this together as a set, oh my gosh, like, can this be, I need this print as something. Do you see that? I need this print. But anyway, can you see as a set how this belongs in a cabinet of curiosities? So this would be, I believe this is deck number 3. This is the Embroidered Graveyard. And this is by Alicia or Alicia. I know people pronounce it differently. It's not directly on the box. All right, I'll try to link it below. But absolutely, yes, curiosity. Okay, so the next 2 decks I have are by the same creator, and I bet a lot of people do have decks from this creator in a curiosity category. So this is the Mildred Payne's Oracle of Black Enchantment. This is by Deviant Moon, Patrick Valenza. I love this spooky deck. There's some extra cards here. So these are the backs. They are really large for my hands. So like, I have pretty small hands though, but it's definitely larger than, let's see, Embroidered Graveyard was a standard tarot, so you could see it's larger. I did edge these in like a burnt orange, so they feel extra Samhain and Halloween-y. These were some extra cards that came with it. Patrick Valenza always adds in extra cards. So we've got like spooky old photographs, which are always fun to add in spreads just to make it super aesthetic, especially if you take photographs of your spreads, which I do. Okay, so let's take a look. So these are landscape, but they're all landscape, which is nice to have that continuity. So these cards are just numbered, and there is a PDF guidebook. I believe I have it saved on my phone. And these remind me of like the wood block carvings. I forget what the name of that art style is. I believe there's a name to it. but they remind me of the woodblock art carvings of like depictions of witches in like Salem, Massachusetts, like during like, you know, the hysteria of witches. You know, I feel like we've seen these in like history books, and I think that just makes me feel so curious. And I mean, I was a kid who just really, like, when we learned about like the Salem witchcraft in like, I don't know, 6th or 7th grade, I was like, ooh, am I a witch? So this deck is just so witchy and amazing. And this is another one I feel like you don't see too much on like Instagram or social media. I feel like, you know, people really love the Deviant Moon, which I do have. But it's so funny with the Deviant Moon, I don't really get spooky vibes from it. Like, to me, I know this is going to probably sound so weird, I use the Deviant Moon for inner child work. And that might be super strange to people, but I love it for inner child work because it reminds me of books I used to read as a kid. One in particular, The Stinky Cheese Man, if anyone remembers that book. I think it was in like the 80s, like late, no, probably not late 80s, early 90s probably. But yeah, that to me is not a spooky deck. It's very comforting and like, I don't know, it just reminds me of my childhood. Whereas this one's a little ominous. It's like look at this. Like, everyone's dressed in like colonial gear, and like colonial America is so frightening. And I have like this weird affinity for it just because it's just horrifying. So this deck is just so freaking cool. And I feel like you could see this in like an antique shop, in like cards like this in like an old shoebox, or behind like a glass cabinet that you have to ask to be unlocked. Like, if I just saw that there, I'd be like, what is that? So that is why this deck belongs in my cabinet of curiosities. I love it. And the creator, Patrick Valenza, like, look at this. Like, I feel like that could be a meme. The one that's like, not a cell phone in sight and people just living life, right? Like, oh my gosh. It's just, the more you look at it, you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, Patrick Valenza, he, you know, he loves to create decks and then like make different colors and all kinds of stuff. So this actually comes in a lot of different colors. There's a blue, there's an orange, there's a blood red. They're all super cool. I just love this like old school style, like wooden parchment paper look. And then again, I think the burnt orange came out really awesome. So I love the vibe of this deck. So this is a favorite of my curiosity decks. Let me put this back in. So yeah, Mildred Payne's Oracle of Black Enchantment. Okay, so my other Patrick Valenza deck, which is one that I feel like a lot of people don't know about or don't have, and it's super strange. This is the Carte visite. So this is, he labels it as 29 disturbing cabinet cards. So like, of course this would go in a cabinet of curiosities. It's a cabinet card deck. So this deck is really strange and creepy in the best way. So they're double-sided. So one side has like an old photo, and then the back has like creepy, you know, it's Patrick Valenza's handwriting, and like just like a creepy little saying. The landlord has come to collect his rent. Like, what? These are so good. And for a while, I didn't know how to use them. But what I like to do in like, you know, spooky season, October, November, I'll just kind of shuffle and add one in to my readings, and it just kind of adds a cool layer. Look at this. Okay, first of all, the driver is dead. And then the back, driving leisurely down the road to hell. So again, this deck will not be for everyone, but for someone like me who is such a horror fan lover, this is amazing. Yeah, these also look like old photos you find antiquing at a flea market, just like found photos, and just kind of wondering, like, who are these people? Are they still alive? Like, they're probably dead. What happened to them? It's just, this deck is great. Again, not for everybody, but it's for me. The Widow. She's got like a lobster claw for a hand. Like spooky child with a head in a wheelbarrow. Sometimes I feel like that's how my sleep paralysis feels like. Does anyone else get sleep paralysis? That's probably one of the most terrifying sensations ever. Awful. I only get it when I nap, when I'm not supposed to, and the TV's on and I hear things in the background. I digress. Anyway, Carte de visite by Deviant Moon in my Curiosity Cabinet decks. All right, I have quite a bit more, not that much more, but I like talking about them. Okay, you cannot have a Curiosity Cabinet without the Carnival at the End of the World deck. So this is by Kahn and Selesnik. So this is such a elevated art deck. It's one I don't use a lot, and they do have 6 extra cards with these like random characters, and I was like playing around when I first got this deck of like writing meanings for these characters, and I did. I don't know where that book is though. So those are the extra cards I like to keep separate. But this is the same exact size and cardstock as the Pagan Otherworlds, which I know people love. I am one of those people who do not love it. It's a little bit too long for my hands, so it's not super comfortable to shuffle. And because it's so slippery, like if this were like a matte cardstock, the size wouldn't bother me as much, because like I feel like matte has a little bit of like, it'll hold together more, but because these are so slippery and they're just slightly too long, whenever I shuffle these end up all over the place. So that's why you don't see these a lot in my readings. So this has been in like the, what Lisa Pepez calls the purgatory drawer forever, but I can't get rid of it because it's so freaking cool. So I'm thinking, well, first of all, it's like so pagan. Like, I feel like this is the Wicker Man, right? Like, I love the 2006 version. Like, people make fun of me because like it's known to be like a terrible movie, but I love it so much. And like, I feel like that's Nicolas Cage just like burning to his death there. This deck is so pagan and so strange. I've been saying for a long time, I feel like this deck should be called Pagan Otherworlds, because Pagan Otherworlds doesn't feel that pagan to me. It actually feels a little bit more Christian and biblical. Like, this to me feels like a pagan otherworld of just like this fantastical world. But this deck, the artwork is amazing. Look at that star card, this like big coral reef figure. But again, I don't use it as much because of the size and the cardstock. So I am thinking of possibly trimming the borders. Maybe that might help. I believe Dawn Michelle from Boho Tarot did that. I should take a look at her video again. And then I think she ended up giving this deck away anyway, but I might give that a try, just because I'm simply not using this because it, like, the tactile experience doesn't work for me. So I might as well give it a try. And then if it still doesn't work, I guess I can let it go. But I really don't want to let it go, because this is the kind of deck that makes me feel really curious. It's so strange and whimsical, and it's a different world. Like, I want to know what's going on in this world. Like, I kind of want to be in this carnival. maybe not in the Carnival. Maybe I want to watch the Carnival, but it's a great deck and it's weird. And that's why it belongs in a cabinet of curiosity. I love this Temperance card too. How weird. Like, how weird. This deck is definitely not for beginners either. Like, it's really sometimes hard to even figure out what it is, especially the minors. So if I trim this, I would definitely have to keep the numbers and the titles. So I think I might just trim just the simple border. That might make it more easy to handle. So we'll see. But yeah, I love this deck, and that's why it hasn't been rehomed, but at the same time I don't use it. So this, I have to figure out what I'm doing with this deck. But regardless, it made its way into this video in my cabinet of curiosities, the Carnival at the End of the World Tarot. Okay, so next is in this random bag that doesn't actually belong to this tarot. This is actually for the Strawberry Tarot, but this is my Spolia Tarot, and the box didn't make it. It was very beat up. It just it didn't last long. So this deck I also didn't use for a long time because they were too big for my hands. So what did I do? I trimmed off all the borders. So this was my very first trim job with like actually modifying the deck, not just edging it, which I don't really feel like is modifying it. Let me take a sip of water. So I love how this came out. I think this deck didn't need those borders, and I feel like the images really pop now. And it's strange. I feel like the collage work is really strange. Sometimes it's a little busy. I love this High Priestess card and also the Star card. The artwork can be very strange. It can be very busy. But it's cool. And again, I don't know why I don't reach for this one more either. I would like to, because this has also been in the Purgatory drawer, in and out quite a bit. I also really love the Sun card and this Mermaid card for Page of Cups. Yeah, it's a nice size now that I trimmed it. It feels like a Fournier deck. If any of you have or own a Fournier deck, that's what it feels like. But you can see the collage work. It's cool. It's really, really cool. This Devil card, love. Yeah, this needs to come out too. I do really enjoy this Moon card as well. I also actually really like the cardstock. It's kind of like a, it's definitely a really, really matte cardstock, and it's got a it helps with shuffling for me that they don't explode out of my hands when I riffle shuffle it. I like this Knight of Swords too. Very scary. And this Death card. See, it has so many good cards. I have to leave this out. I have to make sure I use this soon. The guidebook is actually pretty good. This is written by Jessa Crispin, artwork by Jen May, and it's funny. So yeah, I need to use this. And the deck also comes with 12 astrology cards. Of course, I have Leo out. 12 astrology cards, and then also 4 elemental cards. So we've got earth, fire, water, and air. So there's a lot you can do with this deck. There truly is. So this is another one that I feel like just makes me feel really curious. It's a deck you don't see a lot. I'm not sure if this is out of print either. So if it is, I apologize. I feel like it's out of print, or it's just not, it's not around a lot. So that would be another deck that makes me feel super curious. Okay. So let me grab these decks on the floor. So the next two decks I have are not by the same creator, but I'm putting them together for a reason. So these are two different creators who created these. This is the Tarot Chimera and the Lonely Dreamer Tarot. And the reason I am putting these together is because they are both the artwork. They both feature artwork by the French painter Odilon Redon. And I didn't know anything about Redon before these decks made their way to me. And I find his artwork absolutely haunting in the best way. So this is The Lonely Dreamer. This is by Melissa Wotherspoon. These are the backs. And I feel like Odilon Redon's artwork is, like, as this deck is called The Lonely Dreamer, to me, it perfectly depicts a really lush and vivid, like, dreamscape, where sometimes it can be a nightmare and sometimes it's super vibrant and really beautiful. And I feel like this deck is like, I don't know, it's just such an invitation into his world, and I find it fascinating. It makes me feel really curious. His artwork makes me feel a lot of things. Like, I feel the depth of emotions, if that makes sense. Like, whether it's sadness or joy or, you know, just like the whole range. I just feel like his artwork is really evocative and sad and beautiful. And it makes me really, really happy at the same time. So this deck in particular, which is all in color, I would say this is in my top 10 decks ever. I just love it so much. And I'm so grateful to have found this deck, because otherwise I wasn't familiar with Redon or his art at all. Like, I just have never heard of him. And I'm so glad I did, because his art really just moves me. And I love anything that moves me. I mean, this death card, hello. So freaking gorgeous. Yes. This also needs to come out and play. I haven't used this in a while. His artwork is very saturated too, which I like. Like, whether it's dark or more colorful. Where is more colorful card? Like, it's just super saturated, and I love it. So this is The Lonely Dreamer Tarot by Melissa Wotherspoon. So let me put this one back, and then I'll show you another deck. And this comes in a really nice little like clamshell, not clamshell, is this clamshell? But it has the nice magnetic, which is always just delicious. Okay, so the next deck that also features the artwork of Odilon Redon is the Tarot Chimera. So this is the Arcana of Odilon Redon, and this is by Urania Press. So again, two completely different creators. This one's in a tuck box, and it came with extra cards that I put in here. They're beautiful. I just wasn't sure how to read them, so I just kind of put them off to the side. These are the backs of this deck, and I love both because this one is his artwork in like monochromatic, like more like dark black and white or black and, you know, natural colored. I edged these myself in black. So what's cool with this is you'll see a lot of the same artwork in both of them, and they evoke different emotions if it's in color or in black and white. Like, you could see this one, that was that death card I showed you that had flowers down here. And this is the death card in black and white, and they are just so different, and I love it. So I like to turn to this card, obviously, in the darker months of the year. Even just in winter too, just like when the landscapes are kind of a little bit more bleak, because this deck kind of feels bleak, but in a really good way. if that even makes sense to anyone else other than me. But yeah, this deck is also super evocative, and I think it's great for shadow work. Oh, I did leave some of the extra cards in. This is embodiment. Like, I just want to know what's going on with these figures, right? Like, look at that. His artwork is just so haunting. This looks like Jesus. That has to be Jesus, right? Then look at this devil card. And this is also on a really nice linen cardstock, which I enjoy. And this one isn't as, I don't know, for some reason I don't have trouble shuffling this one. I don't know what it is. Yeah, these are just so beautiful. So this would also go in my cabinet of curiosities. Pretty much any artwork by Odilon Ray Dawn, I realize I adore. I really adore. I think he had a really rich inner world. And I think they said that about him too. Like, he grew up very sickly as a child, so he was alone a lot. And it was like him and his imagination, which like totally makes sense. Okay, so another deck, I have just like 4 more, including this one. This one is my Barbara Walker Tarot in a Tin. So I got this back in the fall, on my last trip to Salem. So I haven't really used this deck yet. I've just kind of shuffled and kind of played around with it. This is obviously the mini version because it's in a tin. This deck is so witchy. It is so evocative. And to be quite honest, this deck scares me, but in the best way possible. Like, the same way I get scared by horror, but I love it. That's what this deck makes me feel. If it's like a horror deck that makes me feel things. And it's scary in a good way. I just think the imagery is really vibrant, but dark at the same time, and really haunting. And I haven't quite used this yet, but I think this deck is ready to come out and be used. I do feel like it's calling to me. And I don't know if any of you all are like that, but I'll like get a deck because I know it's like I'm meant to work with it, or it's meant to be like in my life or whatever, in my collection, but I could sit on it and not use it forever. And I have to feel ready. So I don't know if that makes sense to anyone, if anyone else does that. But yeah, I always knew I needed this deck. I came across it in like a little shop in Salem, so I did get it. But I've been sitting on it for months. It didn't feel like the time. But I do feel like, I don't know, maybe even next month, maybe August or September, this deck has to come out. It's time. A lot of the scenes here too remind me of the movie The Love Witch. I don't know if any of you have seen that, if you are into horror or anything like that, but it's so good. And it's very 70s, and this deck is very 70s. And that's another thing I realized, which I need to do one of those VRs, like my aesthetic decks, but I've realized that if a deck or artwork has a 70s vibe or slant to it, I will be into it. I don't know, these images scare me in a good way. So yeah, that's Barbara Walker Tarot in a Tin. The size, the cute tiny size is adorable. I'd love to find the guidebook, like the full-size guidebook. I don't think, I mean, they're very much out of print. If I could find a copy, I would love it because I feel like the artwork is so rich and esoteric, and a lot of that is kind of lost on me because I don't know what it means. But yeah, if anyone has one and they're wanting to get rid of it, let me know. I will buy it off of you. Okay, just a few more. Let me be mindful of the time. I've been talking for 40 minutes. Okay, so another deck that I feel like belongs in a cabinet of curiosities for me is the Serpent Fire Tarot. This is by Devony Wolf. So this deck also, speaking of 70s vibes, has such a 70s energy, and it feels very retro futuristic. Here are the backs. So yeah, it just reminds me of like 70s retro futuristic fantasy, like high fantasy. I don't really do path working, but I feel like this deck would make me want to. Like, I feel like each one of these cards makes me want to step inside of this landscape and just like explore this like alternative universe or something. I mean, gorgeous. Hello, Frida. We have Stevie Nicks as the Page of Pentacles. This deck is very sexually charged, which I like. It feels feral, and like I feel like that's a word I keep using lately. I just feel like with like the world and just everything that's happening, like I'm just so tired of like rules and like people telling me what to do. So that's what this deck feels like. And also, can we talk about the Empress card? Like Elizabeth Taylor, stunning. Yeah, like I want to crawl into these scenes and check out this landscape. This Devil card is pretty awesome too. Like there's a lot of Egyptian symbology, but this doesn't feel like Egypt. It feels like a completely other world, another dimension, another planet. And I want to explore it. It feels wild. It feels powerful. And you know, it's an intense deck. Like obviously this is a fiery deck. If you wanted to like talk about like the elemental energy, this is definitely a fiery deck. So I'm definitely planning to use this in August, so next month, for my tarot edit. It just feels right for Leo season, which is my season as a Leo. And yeah, I just feel like this can help bring out your innate power. This can help tap into that inner fire of yours, that inner fierceness, that inner wildness that I know I've been craving. It's mystical. It feels mysterious. Like, what world is this? Kind of feels like an acid trip or something. I love it. This is probably my favorite magician card ever. It feels so powerful. Yeah, so that would go in my cabinet of curiosities because Serpent Fire landscapes to me are everything. I want to path work into them. Let me know down below, any of you guys who actually do path working. It's not something I do, but I heard a lot of people in the tarot community talking about it, and it really intrigued me, to be quite honest. So for those of you who do, let me know down below in the comments like how you actually do it. I'm so curious, and I feel like I would want to use one of her decks. Okay, so another deck by Serpent Fire, Devony Wolf, that I would put in a curiosity cabinet is her Celestial Bodies deck. So this is an astrology and numerology oracle deck. It is a chunker of a deck. And the reason look how cool. The reason I put this in a cabinet of curiosity category is, number one, I know the basics of astrology. Like, I know the basics of my natal chart, things like that. But anytime you get a little more advanced, like the second you start talking about midhavens and Chiron, and I'm just like, I don't know what that means. So this deck makes me, the reason I bought it was because I wanted to learn more. So this is definitely a learning tool. So pretty. So like, I don't know what these mean, like Grand Cross. She goes into numerology. So I haven't used this to actually study yet. I have used this just for like card pulls, you know, involving like astrological symbols. But this is another one where I feel like I'm so curious about this landscape. Like, I want to walk into that spacey world. I don't even know what that means. Sextiles. Yeah, you talk about sextiles or conjunctions, you've lost me. I do not know. I want to know, but I do not know. But these landscapes, okay, Leo landscape, yes, please. Like, that could be a movie cover, right? Like a 70s sci-fi erotic thriller featuring a, you know, the heroine and like the main protagonist is this like Leo, fierce, feral woman, because that's like my new favorite word. And like, this is the movie cover. I would love to watch that. We've got a card for Saturn return. We've got a card for all the signs. And then again, more numerology, T-square, no clue. So yeah, this deck makes me curious to really dive into astrology. We've got the houses, void of course, but again, for anyone who does path working, I just feel the need, like I just want to jump into these cards. So let me know if you do path working again, and like, how do you do it? What would I even do if I wanted to path work? I have no idea, but this deck is freaking cool. And again, it's got that 70s aesthetic to it that I just found I'm drawn to. I don't even know what that says. I don't even know how to pronounce it. So how can I not be curious about this deck? So this is another one I don't typically see a lot on social media. Maybe because not a lot of people have it, or maybe they don't know how to use it like myself. I just don't feel ready to, but I'm so happy I have it. So that's the Celestial Bodies Astrology and Numerology Oracle deck by Devony Wolf of Serpent Fire. Okay, let me just move these out of the way. Okay, so we have made it to my last deck in my cabinet of curiosities. And unfortunately, this one's out of print, so I apologize ahead of time. So this is the Solara Occulto Tarot. So I feel like this goes in a cabinet of curiosities for a lot of reasons. Like it's more rare, and I feel like people really want it. I love that I have it. I love how I like randomly found it when the shop was selling it and I scooped it up. The box is absolutely gorgeous. It was unnecessary because the deck is much smaller, but I do love the box. The guidebook is interesting because like it's only on the front pages. So again, that could have been condensed, but that's okay. So see here, we didn't really need all this extra packaging, but that's okay. I'm not complaining. The box is quite beautiful. So this is an 80 card deck. So it has 2 extra majors. You can see the front, that is 3 of Cups, which is really beautiful. So I think this art style feels curious and strange to me. So these are the backs. I believe this is the 2nd edition. Oh no, this is actually, that's so funny. I never realized Solara Occulto 1st edition. So I do have the first edition, and this was in 2019, because I thought the first edition had the black backs. I guess that was second edition. So the reason why I haven't used this much is I really don't like the borders at all. But let's not talk about borders. Let's just talk about the strange artwork. And I love it. It's weird. It has that haunting vibe to me, but also reminds me of children's storybooks. I think the limited color palette really works for this deck. Yeah, it just gives off a strange vibe that I really, really enjoy. So I am thinking of modifying this deck. Don't yell at me because I know it's out of print, but I want to use it and I feel like it'll get more use if I trim it, but I don't know. Will I regret that? But this deck makes me feel really curious. It just feels so obscure. Like I know a lot of people want this deck and the creator just hasn't put out another printing. I know she has done, or I think it's out right now, the new tarot, the Crimson, is it the Crimson Ostara? So it's the same illustration type, but it's like red, white, and gold. I think that's the limited color palette. That one I wasn't as drawn to. I mean, if someone gifted that to me, I certainly would use it and I'd probably love it, but I'm not gonna go out of my way to buy it because I have this. But yeah, the deck just feels like obscure, like it's hard to find. I want the matching oracle too. I want to say it's called Sulfur and Salt, Mercury, Sulfur and Salt. That's really hard to find. You can't find that anywhere. And I'm pretty good at finding decks. Like I know where to look. So yeah, I just feel like this deck feels like kind of rare, kind of obscure. It makes me feel curious. If I had a little curiosity shop, this would be behind the counter or this would be in the cabinet and you'd have to ask for a key to look at it. Look at the star card. It's so cool. Maybe I should just try working with it again with the borders and see how I feel. Otherwise, this might have to get the chop. And then if I chop, do I just do the 3 sides and leave the title? Because this is an extra card, Prudence. Or do I just chop it all the way, leave the gold, maybe, and just do intuitive? I mean, they're mostly pretty easy to read. It's pretty Rider-Waite-Smith. So I don't know. Again, let me know in the comments below what you think, or maybe you think I'm crazy and should not modify this at all, and that's fair. Let me know what you think. But this definitely feels like a very curious deck. I have it and I'm curious about it. Like it's weird. So that is my collection of decks that would go in my cabinet of curiosities. So let's try to fit them all on the screen. I appreciate you guys watching this video because this was pretty long. I feel like I've been talking for quite a bit. And how long have I been talking? Oh my gosh, 53 minutes. This is probably going to take forever to load onto YouTube. So I can't fit everything in here. But yeah, this is my cabinet of curiosities. Thanks so much for Candy, Soul, and Soil, who created this tag, and this was a lot of fun. I got to take out some decks I haven't worked with in quite a while, and I'd love to know what you all think of this selection and, you know, what would be in your cabinet, and yeah, what you think of these decks. So let me know down in the comments below, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone. Bye.